Welcome to Hoop It All Basic Techniques, a series of 4 lessons that lay a foundation for understanding the relationship between our embroidery machine hoops and Hoop It All hoops. Lesson 3 builds on Lesson 2 and shows additional illustrations of how your embroidery machine stitching area fits inside several different types of Hoop It All hoops. Even if your Hoop It All hoop is not a double wide, it would be to your benefit to review this lesson. In the previous 2 lessons, we examined the importance of understanding the stitching field of our own embroidery machine hoops and the Hoop It All hoops. In this lesson, we are going to review one additional concept about how the stitching fields fit within the Hoop It All hoops, and that is the center overlap of a double wide hoop. If you have the embroidery software, you are probably anxious to learn how to use it to create and split designs for the Hoop It All hoops. These basic technique lessons lay a foundation for understanding concepts we will use when designing using the digitizing software. As a review of Lesson 2, these 4 sketches illustrate several different configurations of combining stitch fields in order to create a larger design. The top 2 sketches are of a long Hoop It All hoop that is a single width. The bottom 2 sketches are of a square double wide Hoop It All hoop. It is important to note in the upper right sketch that the 2 hoops will have a center overlap. When measured with my hoops, it is about 1/2 of an inch or a little over 12 millimeters of overlap. One limitation of using the Hoop It All hoops is that even though the hoop is almost double the size of your embroidery machine hoop, it isn't exactly. So we can create designs that just meet at the center line, or we can create designs that utilize the center overlap of the Hoop It All hoop. As you can see from the picture of a quadrant of the template of a square double wide Hoop It All hoop, the gray areas indicate the center overlap areas. The exact width of the stitching field of this Hoop It All hoop is 280 millimeters, which means that half of the width is 140 millimeters. The full width of the stitching field for the embroidery machine hoop that fits this hoop is 145 millimeters. Using examples of embroidery in my embroidery machine stitching field and the Hoop It All square double wide template, if I keep the design the full width of my embroidery machine stitching field, as illustrated in this upper right picture, the design will overlap here in the center when I stitch both sides. If I take that full width design, however, and resize it to fit within just 1/2 of the Hoop It All hoop stitching area, as illustrated in this lower picture, the design fits nicely within each side and avoids an overlap in the center that would ruin the design. If your embroidery machine is capable of reducing designs in size incrementally, you can reduce the size of a built-in design that uses the full width of your hoop to the size of 1/2 the width of the Hoop It All hoop stitching field. For example, the stitching field of my oval hoop is 145 millimeters, but half the width of my square double wide hoop is 140 millimeters. So I decrease the width of this square design to just under 140 millimeters. This video illustrates how, when stitching the square design, the stitching field of each hoop overlaps other stitching fields. By stitching the same design in each quadrant of the double wide Hoop It All hoop, I create one large integrated design. With the Hoop It All hoop, the design is stitched in 4 separate steps, but without needing to rehoop the fabric. As illustrated earlier, if you stitch a design that uses the full width of your embroidery machine stitching area, your designs will overlap in the center. If you have digitizing software, you will be able to modify the design so that it will fit within the Hoop It All stitching field. In this example, we remove the center flower on one of the sides to allow for overlap of the designs in the center. This design became a pillow, and it was planned to make it appear that there is no center line of the design. Some of the hearts were used to overlap the center, and a section was stitched across the center, utilizing all 4 sides of the Hoop It All hoop. The rest of the design was stitched in quadrants, similar to the quilted example that we saw previously. In this lesson, you saw how the stitching fields of a double wide Hoop It All hoop contain an area in the center that overlaps. In general, this means that you will need to reduce the width of designs that utilize the full width of your embroidery machine stitching area. Or if you want to take advantage of the overlap area, you need to plan your design accordingly. The more you use your Hoop It All hoop, the easier it will be for you to visualize the stitching area and how to utilize it fully. It is highly recommended that you stitch each new design once as practice and then a second time for your project. The next lesson in this series of basic techniques is Lesson 4, Planning Your Project Without Using Digitizing Software. The second series of lessons, Digitizing Techniques, begins instruction on using software to plan your embroidery project. I welcome your questions and feedback as I plan to add more classes and projects for the Hoop It All hoops. Thank you for taking time to view this video. I have been a home sewist for over 40 years. In 2003, I established my machine embroidery business, American Stitchworks, and I enjoy teaching sewing, machine embroidery, and computer digitizing techniques. I have enjoyed using the Hoop It All hoops to create a variety of projects, and I hope that you have similar successes.